videos. Like I uploaded a video recently to Twitter, recently at the time of recording this at least, where Charles is like chasing the player in their train, and there's a storm, and it's all raining, and there's like a bunch of like buildings and stuff around. And I love that clip so much. I think it's a beautiful clip. And like, I don't know, a few hours after posting it, I was looking at it again. I was like this is actually kind of cool. Like this is like just like on occasion, like, not to sound like too insanely egotistical, but like I impress myself. I do. I'm like, dang, like this is actually pretty neat. Like, I'm not completely desensitized to the fact that like I made it, and I feel like I don't know. But yeah, I'm very happy with where things are going, and I'm probably, at least at this point, I'm the most proud of Choo-Choo Charles out of any of my games so far.
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Jennings, and today I'm joined by Gavin Eisenbeisz. Gavin is the owner and solo developer behind multiple games at Two-Star Games, right? Including Cloud Climber, My Beautiful Paper Smile, My Friend is a Raven, and the trending spider train horror game, Choo-Choo Charlie. Today, we'll be talking about what it's like to work on a highly anticipated and covered indie game, being occasionally scared by your own work, how Gavin's work experience as a videographer plays into creating game trailers, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. Welcome, Gavin, to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, just as far as like an intro question, I had a few burning ones. You were kind of hard. Like I read a bit about you, and it's kind of hard to figure out what a good starting question for you is. But I feel like there's only one that really it matters to really start with, and that would be, why is there a couch blockading your doorway?
that is highly confidential. I wasn't expecting you to go there. So I'm just going to casually dodge that. And yeah.
Very fair.
Just move on to the next one.
Yeah. Right. No comment. Yeah. So for those who are curious, it's just a part of Gavin's videos. If you watch his YouTube, you'll see it. But yeah. So more looking at your work, right? I really love looking at your projects. The art's gorgeous. You have a very interesting tone to all of them, and I guess kind of like looking at all of them, I get a strong sense of I guess isolation and loneliness, like kind of just generally as a theme in them. And I guess is that intentional? Is that just kind of how you design your games? Like what does loneliness mean to you in your games?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. And ultimately it's not intentional. It's not a conscious effort, but and it's not even something that I've really been aware of even until you just pointed this out. Cloud Climber, you're the last person on Earth, supposedly. My Friend is a Raven. It's just you and some raven. My Beautiful Paper Smile, you're just kind of like wandering around, mostly alone. Choo-Choo Charles is the first game that I'm working on kind of in recent times. It actually has a lot of like human characters and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely not an intentional thing. I do think it's partially a side, just a natural side effect of working on horror games typically. Because just the whole idea of like, oh, isolation is scary, and if there's people around, then you feel safer. And so I think that's partially where some of that comes from. With like Cloud Climber, for example, that game it's not a horror game at all, but I was making it for a game jam, so I didn't have any time to add other characters, so it's just like I just kind of had to go with the simplest idea I could. So cutting out other characters and stuff and just making it the one player, just was kind of how it went. So it's not an intentional thing. I think it's just kind of how it's all lined up. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. I was curious. And I guess with that said, right, like clearly you have a passion for horror games, right? What are some of your favorite horror games? Like which ones inspire you?
Well, I have to give credit to Five Nights at Freddy's, that whole series. That's basically what got me into horror. And I mean, honestly, like I don't even like I really don't play a lot of horror games. I don't even really consume a lot of horror media because most of the time I just find it kind of boring. But so like other than the FNAF series, I mean, like I've played like Little Nightmares. That was pretty cool. But like yeah, I just I don't know. Don't play a lot of horror games, but I think FNAF would have to be kind of what I give a lot of credit to for getting me into this space to begin with.
That's cool. And was was there anything about that game in particular that kind of spoke to you, or?
Yeah, it was a couple things. So for one, like everybody I knew was talking about it. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's so cool! It's so scary!" And then eventually, like I gained the courage to like look up a video of it and see like how scary it really was. And so like when I saw it, and I had kind of like it was like I don't know, I was probably like 12 or 13, right? And I had like kind of my first exposure to like really scary horror. And I remember just thinking like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like this is actually like this is kind of cool, And so I think just like the realization that like, oh, horror isn't that bad. Horror is kind of cool. And then also like the whole storytelling aspect of Five Nights at Freddy's, that was very interesting to me at the time, and all like the theory videos about it and all that kind of stuff. I was obsessed with that stuff. I would watch, 8-Bit Ryan, or actually at the time it was 8-Bit Gaming. And all the game theory stuff and Doco and all that stuff, all the people doing theories. I just found that stuff super interesting. So yeah.
I love that. My sister, she was a big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's too, and she would gush to me about the lore videos very much like to what you're talking about. It was fun hearing her like kind of explain them though, right? Very cool.
It's good stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned kind of finding it at 12. And one of the things I found while kind of like researching your background is 12 is about like when you kind of started game development, right? Is that fair? Or?
Yeah. So I guess I would have found FNAF. It would have been a little bit later. Okay. Probably maybe when I was like 13, 14. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, because I knew about FNAF and I wanted to make horror games for a few years before I actually started making my own. But I did start making games when I was 12 though. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. And I mean, that is impressive, right? I've only met a few developers who like started that young. Like, I'd love to hear about your journey. Like, what kind of brought you to game development? What was the interest? What were the first games you made? Like, I'd love to hear about how you started.
Yeah. So, growing up, obviously, like I loved video games. I thought they were super cool. Me and my siblings, we had a Nintendo DS. That was like the only kind of like gaming I did. Oh, and also coolmathgames.com.
Fantastic stuff on classic.
But I always thought, I'd always have ideas for games that didn't exist or games that I thought would be cool to play. I was like, oh, if I could make games, that would just be so cool. But I didn't realize that was something that you could just do. I didn't realize that you could just like download some free software and watch a couple videos and just like, oh, poof, hey, now you got a game. So eventually, at one point, I was talking to a friend and he's just like, yeah, I make video games. Or, he mentioned that was something that he did. And I asked him more about it and he's like, yeah, there's free software that I use called Blender. And the next day I downloaded that and I started, watching tutorials because at the time Blender, it wasn't just like 3D modeling and animation stuff. It also had a game engine. and they had like this really nice, simple like logic brick system. And so that was kind of how I first got into it. And so I messed around with Blender for, I think it was like basically a year, 1 year that I played around with Blender. And for whatever reason, I thought that I had just, I thought that my knowledge of game development had just so far surpassed anything that I could do in Blender, that I was like, oh, I need to upgrade. I gotta get better tools and stuff. And so that was when I upgraded to Unreal and started using that. And I've just been on Unreal ever since. It's been super awesome. I love that software.
Very cool.
And yeah, as far as first games go, oh man, that stuff was weird. The very first game that I ever made was off of it was a tutorial that I followed on YouTube by like the Arma Gamer 420 or something like that. And dude it's just like some kid that put out like a 20-minute tutorial on how to make like a little like soccer game. So you'd like, it was like a 2-player thing, like each player would control a little character and they would like try and push a ball into the goal on the other side, and there was like a scoring system. And so I made that as my very first game. And I don't know what after that I just kind of spent my first year just like making tons of random stuff, random prototypes, like unfinished games, you know, just kind of messing around with stuff and trying to learn different aspects of the engine. And after that, after I started using Unreal, I started thinking, maybe I should try to actually publish a game, because like people make money off of games. At the time, like I was just having fun doing it because it's just fun to do, and I just thought it was super neat. But eventually I decided I wanted to try and make a mobile game, because a lot of the games that I would play as well were like, iPhone games, Angry Birds and Cut the Rope and stuff like that. So I published my first game, which was Sumo Skies, which is where you play as a skydiving sumo wrestler and you have to fly through the sky to catch another skydiving sumo wrestler because he stole your phone. So like you're like, it's kind of weird, but in any case, that was a thing that happened. And yeah, and then I kept on making weird stuff like that. But yeah, we don't talk about those too much.
Oh, that's too funny. I love the premise. I'll say that. I absolutely love the premise.
Thank you. It's glorious.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think I believe you do the code for your games, you do the design, you do the art. Like you're a one-man band, right? Like you do everything, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like I do a lot of outsourcing. For like Choo-Choo Charles. Well, okay, yeah, like for Choo-Choo Charles example, I'm utilizing more like assets and pre-made stuff on that game than like anything else, because it's just like a lot more ambitious than my previous stuff. So it's either hire people for a ton of money and a ton of complication, or just like buy and edit some assets. So I do. I kind of generally know how to do everything, just from like games like My Beautiful Paper Smile, My Friend is a Raven, Cloud Climber. Like on those games, I did everything except for like some of the sound design stuff, which I would like source from like freesound.org and stuff like that. For like Choo-Choo Charles though, like I've got plugins for like IK stuff, and I've got a lot of like pre-made meshes and particle systems and sounds and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as far as like full-time developers, it's just me.
For sure. Wow. I mean, that's awesome. And I'm a big fan of the asset store, so no judgment here. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I mean, as long as your use of assets is making your games better,
Right. Absolutely.
Nobody should care, and nobody really does. Nobody does.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's great. It's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess, with that said, right, is there any, you do everything, right? You're a creative director as well as doing everything else, right? So do you have, is there a specific role that you enjoy doing more than the others, or do you just enjoy doing the whole creative process?
It's kind of a tough one, because everything is fun sometimes,
right.
and everything is very not fun sometimes.
Right.
It's a tough question. I never really know how to answer that. I don't think I have one specific thing that I just absolutely love doing. It's just I generally enjoy most of the process, so I can get through it and still say that I like making games.
Right.
So yeah, no, there's no specific thing.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. That's awesome. Well, having looked at your art and stuff, especially for My Beautiful Paper Smile and My Friend is a Raven, I love your art. I love kind of the sketch look that you go for in it. Yeah, and I saw on, I think it was your Instagram, there was a pen or diorama you did kind of for I think it was My Beautiful Paper Smile, and that was awesome. And so I guess knowing all the digital work and stuff that you've done, I'm always curious about kind of where the first creative spark began, because I know for all of this, I know for me it began with playing with my toys and stuff, and for everybody it's a little bit different. And so I guess my questions would be do you remember maybe the first time you remember making or kind of really creating something as when you're really young? And do you like doing more kind of hand-based arts and crafts and stuff? Do you like creating physical art as well?
Yeah. So I guess as far as a first artistic thing, there's no specific thing. I grew up drawing a lot, and I was actually pretty good, not bad. That's why I was able to do the hand drawn art type stuff in Paper Smile. But I would do the photo reel type sketches and stuff like that. And that was mostly it, other than random art classes where we do random stuff like that. On my own, the stuff that I would kind of enjoy doing is just finding a cool picture online, right, and then just copy sketching it, basically just trying to replicate that picture. Right. So I would do a lot of that. I don't do that kind of stuff that much anymore, just because I spend that creative energy putting it into my work, just in games, videos, all that kind of stuff. So I don't really do physical art these days, but kind of where I guess my artistic sense stems from is just from sketching and stuff like that.
Okay. Very cool. Wow. Man. And I guess with all that in mind, right, I guess kind of going from your sketches and stuff, and kind of first kind of exploring your game design, and going from soccer game tutorials and skydiving sumo wrestlers. How do you feel about Choo-Choo Charles and what you're working on, how well it's received? I think the first time I saw it, it was a Twitter thread and everybody was freaking out, why is there a spider train? How does it feel to kind of reach this point where it seems like your work, it has all this attention? And did you ever imagine that being a possibility?
Yeah, so it's I guess there's a lot of aspects to this question, but I guess I'll start with what I think of it. Going from where I was to where I am now. And ultimately, there have been a couple times recently in the past few months where I've just kind of sat back and looked at videos. I uploaded a video recently to Twitter recently at the time of recording this at least, where Charles is like chasing the player in their train, and there's a storm, and it's all raining, and there's like a bunch of like buildings and stuff around. And I love that clip so much. I think it's a beautiful clip. And like, I don't know, a few hours after posting it, I was looking at it again. I was like this is actually kind of cool. Like this is like just like on occasion, like, not to sound like too insanely egotistical, but like I impress myself. I do. I'm like, dang, like this is actually pretty neat. Like, you know, I'm not completely desensitized to the fact that like I made it, and I feel like I don't know. It's, but yeah, I'm very, you know, happy with where things are going, and I'm probably, at least at this point, I'm the most proud of Choo-Choo Charles out of any of my games so far. But as far as like the attention it's gotten, and you know, whether or not I was expecting it or thought it was possible, basically, so I designed Choo-Choo Charles to perform as well as possible in basically every social media online scenario. You know, I designed it so that it would get attention and convert that attention into action, you know, whether that be people wish listing the game or buying the game or following me on whatever social media platform. Like, that was the intention from the start. That being said, I was expecting it to go well. I knew that the game had a lot of potential, but I was definitely not expecting it to go as well as it has. It is like kind of the first time in 7 years that something has gone better than I expected it to, or even as well as I was hoping. So, yeah, I mean, it's been fantastic to see. Very, very encouraging. Yeah, I think that answers all the parts of the question.
For sure. Yeah, and I know I could be a little bit much, so I'm sorry if it's too many questions out. For sure. That's awesome. That's really awesome, and I love to hear that, and especially like you said, like not being desensitized to like not just the fact you made it, but like being able to appreciate it as like an artwork, or as like as a fan, right? Like being able to like go, like, if it wasn't me, this would still be cool, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's amazing. That's fantastic. And I guess what you're saying that, right? Like you designed it with a focus on kind of optimizing its performance in social media. You know, I've worked on the indie games and stuff too, and I'd be curious, like, do you have any advice for kind of indie creators and like who are trying to work on their games marketing and kind of trying to work in that area? And I know you can't share all your secret sauce, but I'd appreciate tips, as sure as I'm sure others will as well.
Yeah. So ultimately, it all comes down to understanding how social media works, and how all like so like there's a handful of ways that people can find your game. You know, they can find it through a let's play, they can find it through a live stream, or they can find it through, you know, short term or not short form, you know, media, like, you know, a TikTok or a YouTube short or a video on Twitter or Reddit. And so understanding how each of these different platforms treat content, and how people react, because it's not just about the platforms. People will say like, oh, my tweet didn't go viral, Twitter sucks. Oh, my YouTube devlog didn't go viral, YouTube sucks. It's not so much about the platform. It's really about the people using the platform. So knowing how the people on each platform will react to things, so that those pieces of content about your game will just have inherent viral qualities. Like a spider train, like Charles is designed to be a fantastic YouTube thumbnail. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so sure. It just inherently is going to perform better than, you know, the generic monster on, you know, horror game number 159 in the other corner, you know. So the key is, it's just understanding social media and understanding how content moves in these different scenarios.
How interesting. Wow. That's cool. And I guess if you were to study, if you were going to kind of teach someone how to study social media and kind of the different ways that each platform works, right? Like how would you encourage somebody to kind of get to know a platform that they do want to take advantage of?
The best thing you could do is, first of all, use the platform as a consumer, and then use the platform as a creator. So like if you want to, you know, start going viral on TikTok, getting millions of views over there, spend a bit of time watching TikTok, watch, you know, similar content that's gone viral, kind of start to get a feel for it, and then do it yourself. And once you are able to consistently, you know, pull good views, then you know, like, okay, I understand how this platform works. So it's really just about like just understanding, you know, each platform and each content type thoroughly. You know, like for YouTube, it's very important to understand, you know, like what is the thought process that a YouTuber has when they're deciding, you know, which of the 1,000 games that came out this week they're going to play on their channel. Right. So if you have experience making YouTube content and growing a channel, like if you take, actually scratch that example, that doesn't really make any sense, but you get the idea, right? It's like, if you can successfully grow some kind of following on a platform, then you can prove that you understand that, and then utilize all those things that that you've learned in the design of whatever game you're making, and really whatever product, period.
Right. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense, right? So you're basically saying like you should kind of play with the platforms, kind of get to know it, consume content from it, see what's popular, see what you like, right? What's actually working well, and then like you said, like start to experiment with your own videos, make your own content, and see how that kind of builds traction, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, awesome. No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I think that I think Choo-Choo Charles it looks amazing. I watched the trailer a few times. I saw a few articles with screenshots. It just looks like a really, like, even if you're not into horror, like the imagery makes you compelled to kind of want to learn more about the game, right? And I think that's really awesome. And looking at the trailer, because I think I watched one of the trailers where I think Charles is chasing somebody, or he's chasing the player, and they're on the train, they're shooting them, they're throwing basically everything at Charles, and then eventually he kind of wanders off the path, goes off in the distance, and they're still chucking stuff at him. And like basically all your imagery is really well done. And so I did read that like you worked in like as like a filmographer at one point in your life, right?
Not exactly. No, actually, I'm gonna say not at all. No.
No. Okay.
There was, so on my LinkedIn a while back, I put like a volunteer thing that I did where it was like a youth event, sort of like a little local concert thing, and one of the guys running it was like, "Hey, do you want to like take a video there?" And I was like, "Okay, sure, I'll take some videos." So I just, yeah, like I don't have professional or I didn't have any kind of professional video experience. Before doing game development, I did, you know, when I was 9, 10, like I would play around with this digital camera that my parents had. And me and the neighbor kids and my friends, we'd shoot these little videos and skits and stuff. So like I've had a little bit of experience like being on camera and messing around with like editing and stuff, but like nothing crazy.
For sure. Well, I mean, more like I appreciate how transparent you were there, but I think it's obviously looking at the art, all the imagery, right? You have a good eye, right? Like I think that's kind of undeniable, right? And so do you feel like that developed from like the home videos and kind of like recording the videos with your friends and stuff, or is it just something that you've just kind of always been good at? Like, is it something you had to learn?
It's definitely something that you get better at over time. It's something like you learn little tricks along the way. I mean, it's not like the first random skit that I made with my friends was a Steven Spielberg Oscar winning type hit or something. Like it was awful. It was awful. So it's definitely not something that you're born with. It's like just slowly over time noticing like, oh hey, in this movie they did a shot kind of like this and that looked kind of cool, and then you start doing that yourself and you're like, oh yeah, that kind of works. And so it's a lot of experimentation over time. I think just having done a little bit of stuff in the past, like I just had a little bit of extra experience. I mean, honestly, I've spent more time doing video stuff since I started game development, than I had beforehand. So
interesting.
I've definitely been maturing these two skill sets like kind of at the same time, but yeah, I mean, it's just about observing what other people are doing, what's working, what looks nice. Like if I see something that looks cool, all I need to do is say, okay, why does this look cool? And then I can do it myself. So
right. Okay.
I think that's kind of the format. It's not so much about like just knowing. How do I say it? It's like the only difference between somebody who's like artistically inclined and somebody who isn't is that they can tell the difference between something that looks, or no. They can tell you why something looks bad and why something doesn't. It's not just an inherent quality.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And you kind of spoke to like essentially reverse engineering, right? And I think I think a lot of us kind of learn how to make anything in games through reverse engineering, right? Oh, that thing did really good. I want to do something similar. How do I do something like that, right? And like you said, kind of just dismantling it, right? Or reconstructing like, why did they do it this way? And then, just kind of figuring out exactly like you said, like being able to speak to why it's a quality thing, and then following that, whatever you do observe, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a formula to everything, and some formulas are more complicated than others. But I think eventually, you can kind of, with enough reverse engineering and enough experimentation, you can figure out quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. Very cool. I was going to, I'm kind of like looking at the games, right, that you've worked on. I mean, like I said, I'm a big fan of just kind of the world you created. And I think kind of one of the more striking things, because I think I almost went backwards. I kind of started with Choo-Choo Charles, then I found My Beautiful Paper Smile, and then I found My Friend is a Raven, and then I found Cloud Climber. And I think I was kind of shocked when I found it, because I was like, oh, tone-wise, like it is very different from the other stuff you worked on. And like, so you mentioned it was kind of a game jam game. And so I'd love to hear about like your work on Cloud Climber, what you learned from that project, why it's so different in tone. Like, I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah, so ultimately, I think a big part of why Cloud Climber is different is simply because it was a game jam game. I didn't have, weeks to come up with a really cool horror game idea, and just the theme of the jam. I'm trying to think of what it was. The theme of the jam was, it's been a long time, but we're not done yet. It's kind of like a vague phrase that they used as the theme. And just Cloud Climber was the idea that I had. And I was just thinking, I mean, I don't know. It's just, that was the idea that I had. The idea I had wasn't a horror game. So I was like, well, I guess I just won't be making a horror game. I considered like maybe trying to twist it somehow so that it could be horror. But ultimately I just decided against it because it just didn't feel like it would fit the world and everything else. So that was, I mean, that was kind of just why it wasn't a horror game. It wasn't like any like deep calling or anything like I need to break out of the mold or something. It's like it just happened, you know.
Right.
So that was kind of that aspect of it. As for what I learned from it, though, there was quite a bit. I learned a lot about learned a bit more about how Steam operates and how Steam promotes games. Learned a bit more about players and how they respond to various things. What they enjoy, what they don't. And it also convinced me that first-person games are far superior to anything like side-scroller 2D, anything like that, like what I was doing previously on like Paper Smile and My Friend is a Raven. So yeah, I learned a lot about like audience perception and stuff. So it was a very, very useful game for sure.
That's awesome. Very cool. That's awesome. It kind of, watching the videos of it, it gave me like, I don't know if like I'm old, so it kind of gave me older Mist vibes or
I've heard that.
Right. And then I don't know how I'm forgetting the name of this. It's this indie darling game. Oh boy. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, very much Mist, a puzzle game. Yeah. Have you like, obviously you have a passion for like horror, but like do you enjoy puzzle games or like kind of more exploratory? It kind of reminded me of Firewatch, and then I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of this game, but just kind of, I wouldn't say walking simulators because it looked a lot more interactive than that.
It's pretty much a walking simulator.
All right.
Climb climber.
Sure. Okay. For sure. Okay, for sure. Well, so okay, interesting. Like, so do you enjoy those games? Like,
I not really. Okay. That's kind of the weird thing. Like, I don't, because like I don't really consume horror media.
Right.
I don't play walking sim. I don't really play a lot of games in general. Like, as far as media consumption goes, I basically I just watch YouTube and TikTok sometimes. Like, that's it. I don't even like watch movies very much. So it's not like I'm making it because I'm a fan of it. It's just I just enjoy making that kind of thing, wow. Or at least somewhat. These days, I think I've decided that I'm a little bit more into like gameplay focused stuff a bit more. That's kind of like more the direction that I'm trying to go with, like Choo-Choo Charles and stuff like that. Awesome. I'm trying to get away from like linear storytelling and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't remember exactly what the question was, so I don't know exactly where I'm heading with all this.
Well, I don't remember either, and I asked it, so okay. No.
But in any case, yeah, like it's hopefully whatever words I just spat out mostly answer the question.
Right. I guess I'm kind of, you just mentioned like kind of trying to move away from like linear storytelling, and that's awesome, right? Like I'm kind of curious about like what your vision for kind of non-linear storytelling is, or examples you enjoy, right?
I cut out a little bit there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was saying I think I'd love to know like what your favorite examples of non-linear storytelling are, or like what is your vision for non-linear storytelling going forward?
Yeah. So I think the best example across the board of non-linear storytelling would just be Minecraft. It's I mean it's basically, as far as like a highly viral, just like inherently viral, marketable, fun game, just like all around. It's just like it's the perfect game.
Right,
like
right.
So I definitely like, I'm trying to get, closer in that direction. Obviously, I'm not trying to recreate Minecraft. I don't think anybody could do that at this point.
Right.
But like, I'm trying to get to a point where stories are told. I guess they've got a word for it. They call it like emergent
Right, for sure.
storytelling or something,
Right.
emergent narrative, something like that. I want to get into making games where, that you kind of create the story as you go,
Okay. That's
So,
awesome.
yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of my goal going forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. No, and it makes sense, right? I think well, it doesn't matter what I think, but yeah. That's really cool. I think I was gonna, yeah. So one of the questions I asked, right? Because like we talked about your past, right? We talked about Choo-Choo Charles and what you're doing now. But I'd love to know, what is your dream game? Like if someone signed you a check for $10 million and they're like, Gavin, here, what would you make? Right? What would be your dream? Like, I'd love to, or like, do you have a general concept of the kind of game or anything like that? Is there anything that really kind of like calls to you that you'd love to explore? I guess
really
after.
isn't.
No, really? Okay.
No, I don't have a dream game, just because like, okay, because like kind of my goals in game development like have kind of shifted from like, like, oh, here's a game that would just be like super cool that I would want to play, because like the thing is like, whatever game you make, you're not going to enjoy playing by the time it's done. Like, that's just how it is. Like, you don't create a game so that you can play it. Because you spend thousands of hours testing it and it's boring and you hate it, and it's, every single problem with it, you've had the whole thing spoiled from day one. So like, I don't have a dream game that I want to create for any reason like that. Like, so my goal has kind of shifted to where like, I want to make games that other people want to play. Like, I want to make the coolest game that everybody else in the world is going to want to get their hands on. And other than Choo-Choo Charles, I don't have any current ideas for anything like that. Like, I don't know what the next game is going to be. It took me 4 months to come up with the idea for Choo-Choo Charles, where I was just like basically not doing anything except trying to come up with game ideas, and then just doing like other side stuff. But like, it takes a long time to get the right concept, I think. So yeah, I don't have anything right now. Like I could not tomorrow start working on the dream game, but
right.
Yeah. So that's my answer. That's all I got.
No, for sure, that makes sense. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'd love to hear about like where did the idea for Choo-Choo Charles even come from? Like, what was your creative process? I guess, what is your creative, like, how do you come up with the games you create?
Oh, that's oof. I don't know. Does anybody know how they get ideas? That's like that's the one question that nobody can answer. Like, where the heck do the ideas come from? I don't know.
Right.
The only thing that I have is like I can filter the ideas that I do have, right?
Okay.
So like, depending on what goal I'm trying to achieve, like with my Beautiful Paper Smile, I wanted to make a game that was heavily story based, that was super like cinematic, and that had lots of lore and secrets, because my goal was to get picked up by lots of Let's Players and get theories, because that was where I was kind of being inspired by like Five Nights at Freddy's at the time, and
Right.
games similar to that. And so based on those goals, I was kind of filtering my ideas based on that. So yeah, as far as where the ideas come from, I don't know. I guess the creative process, it's just like, filtering out the good ones and the bad ones based on, what I'm trying to achieve with a specific game.
Right.
As for Choo-Choo Charles, I mean, initially, right, the idea was, I was thinking, a game about an evil train would be cool,
Right.
because, it would like remind people of, of other stuff that's familiar, and it'd be like nostalgia and stuff. And so I just figured that would make sense. And then from there, it was just a matter of like tweaking the mechanics and adding features and characters, and just making the game a well-rounded piece of media. It's just like adding all the necessary things that I thought at the time would get it as much attention as possible.
For sure. Absolutely. And so like throughout this whole interview, you've kind of mentioned like it seems like you really enjoy seeing the response to your work. It kind of seems like that's what really brings you satisfaction, right? And so I guess with that said, like, have you had any fan responses or video reviews or anything that like somebody made in response to your work that's really kind of connected with you, that like really made you feel good about what you made? Do you have any fan theories out there about your games that you're really in love with?
I mean, I think anytime that somebody puts like time into, creating fan art or creating a video where they'll, like review or just like talk about it. Like there are people who will just record themselves just talking about like, guys, I need to tell you about this game I just saw. It's crazy. There's like a train and they'll just like upload videos of themselves just like excited about, like obviously in that example, like for Choo-Choo Charles, so like just anytime that I get to see a specific person who's just like just so hyped about something, like that's cool. That's cool. Anytime that somebody's sharing something with more people, right? Because like if they think it's so awesome that they want to share it with all their friends and their YouTube and their Twitter followers and whatever, like that's awesome. I think another big part of like what really excites me, kind of about all this is just seeing when like my own theories about like, how to make a game that people are interested in, like when those are like proven true. Like, I'll see people who will just take like a random clip or like they'll like re-upload the trailer on their account with like 0 followers and get millions of views. Or they'll, take whatever, they'll do like their a reaction video on their like tiny channel with like a couple hundred subscribers and like blow up. And so like stuff like that, I think is really, really cool to see as well. Just to see that people are like really, really hyped and, and that my theories are correct and, like all the social media stuff, or at least somewhat. I don't know if the specific theories are true, but like something's going right is my point. But yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, you're helping people build communities, which that's really amazing, right? To build a work that people are like, I'm going to share this, and then that brings people to them that love your work.
It's insane. It's something that I've never really even been able to see before, like that I've never noticed before. Like how a lot of people who are like trying to make it on like YouTube, for example. This is just because like this is where I see it the most. A lot of YouTubers that are big now, they got their start off of some piece of content that was just super awesome that everybody wanted to see. And they made content about it, everybody watched it, and then like now they're a big YouTuber people or whatever. And yeah, it's something that I hadn't really realized was such a big deal, I guess. Right. And I don't know, I think it's really cool to be able to see people, like taking advantage of it. It's a perfect mutually beneficial system. So yeah, I'm into it.
That's awesome, man. Very cool. I mean, congrats. That's fantastic. I think that's what any creator would want from their work. So that's awesome that you're experiencing it now. Um, and so, what was, oh man, I just had a question for you. Of course, it slipped my mind. Um, I was going to ask you, I don't know. Oh, well, anyway, yeah. I guess my brain was going to Markiplier and Five Nights at Freddy's, and that I kind of think about that. And like
Yeah.
that was my first exposure to Markiplier. And yeah, anyway. But that's awesome, man. Very cool. Wow. And I guess I'm trying to think, do I have any more questions for you? Oh, I was going to ask. So like you talk about like having your assumptions proven true, like during your game development, seeing people respond to it. Have you ever done anything that you thought would work and it didn't? Like it fell flat and you're kind of legitimately like surprised? Like
Um, I've never really set very high expectations for my projects. I've kind of always uh, acknowledged like there's a really good chance that this is going to fail. Like with Paper Smile, I was stressed out of my mind that that game was not going to do well because I was like, that's kind of what I was preparing for. And sadly, it didn't do so hot. I mean, yeah, I mean, like Choo-Choo Charles is it's like sort of the first game where like I was expecting it to do well, where I like genuinely thought it would do well. And then it actually did. Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe like my very first game, Sumo Skies, because at the time I thought that every single indie game or mobile game would make a bunch of money. And I guess in my 12-year-old or 13-year-old mind, a lot of money at the time would have been like, if I was making like $10 a day or something, I was like, oh my gosh, if I could make like $1 every single day, I could feel like so freaking rich. And that didn't even happen, of course. But yeah, so I guess that was maybe the only time that my hopes and dreams were completely that I was completely blindsided by reality. But yeah.
For sure. Well, yeah, I appreciate the humility. Like it sounds like you really approach with your games and kind of the realism, right? Like it can be kind of hard to temper your own expectations, especially when you spend all these months and to build this thing, right? Absolutely. Well, I think we're getting pretty close on time, and so I guess to if for people who want to follow your work and want to follow the progress of Choo-Choo Charles, follow whatever when your next idea does pop up into your head, if we want to see what that is, where would we follow you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at 2-Star Games, on TikTok at 2-Star Games. TikTok is kind of degenerate though, so I don't upload on there very often. Or on YouTube, which would be 2-Star is the name of the channel. Yeah, that's about it. That's about it. And wishlist Choo-Choo Charles on Steam. Wishlist and follow. You got to do both of them.
Do both of those. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Gavin. This has been an amazing interview. I enjoyed learning more about you. Yeah, I appreciate you for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been another episode of the Zero to Play podcast. See you all next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I hope you learned something about game development, the games industry as a whole, or the future of games. You can follow us on Twitter at Zero to Play, subscribe to us on YouTube or any other podcasting service. And I'll see you guys next week for the next episode.